What's going on today, YouTube? Rob here. Today's video, I'm coming at you with a Dragon-link Bystial deck profile. The Bystials are probably the newest, best engine in the game, aside from the new Ishizu cards, but the Ishizu cards only really work for tier elements, whereas the Bystial engine works for basically every deck. This engine also catapulted Dragon-link back into a top spot for this meta. This is what I've come up with, and like I said, I'll probably change it just to make it a little bit more consistent. But before we get started, I just want to say, if you're new to the channel, consider leaving a like, commenting on what you want to see next, and subscribing to the channel for more fun Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Now let's get into it.
Alright guys, let's get into this Dragon-link Bystial deck profile. Kicking things off, we have triple copies of the Bystial Rebellion. This card cannot be normal summoned or set unless be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by attributing one level 6 or higher Dark Dragon monster. You can only special summon Bystial Rebellion once per turn this way. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and add a Bystial monster from your deck to your hand, except Rebellion, and during your main phase, you can place one branded continuous spell or trap from your deck to your face up on your field, and you can only use each effect of Rebellion once per turn. And we have the one copy of Saranir. This lets you target a light or dark monster in either graveyard and banish it, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. This is a quick effect if your opponent controls a monster. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send one Bystial monster or one branded spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard except Saranir, and you can only use each effect of Saranir once per turn. Then we have double copies of Druisworm. Again, this has the quick effect option of sending a light or dark monster from either graveyard or to banish it, rather, if your opponent controls a monster. And then if this card is sent from field to the graveyard, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard, and then you can only use each effect of Druisworm once per turn. And then lastly, for the Bystial monsters that I have right now that are in the deck, there is one more, but I don't have it. We have triple copies of Magnemite. Again, this lets you target a light or dark monster from either graveyard and banish it, and if your opponent has a monster on the field, this becomes a quick effect. If this card is special summoned, you can activate this effect. During the end phase of this turn, you can add one dragon monster from your deck to your hand, except Magnemite. And you can only use each effect of Magnemite once per turn. I do have another Bystial monster that I'm planning to run on the deck. I will have that on the screen. But let's move on to the rest of the deck. We have one copy of Noctivision Dragon. I'll probably bump this up to 2 as I kind of tweak this deck a little bit. But when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a face down card or cards that you control, quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, negate that effect. Also, your opponent cannot target that face down card or cards with card effects for the rest of this turn. You can only use each of the following effects of Noctivision Dragon once per turn. If a Dark Dragon monster is special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as linked material, you can draw one card. Another card that I'm probably going to bump up to 2 once I kind of tweak the deck a little bit is Bystial Dragon. If you control a rocket monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Bystial once per turn this way, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one rocket monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Bystial once per turn. Then we have one copy of Rocket Synchron. When this card is normal summoned, you can target one level 5 or higher Dark Dragon monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position, and negate its effects. Also, destroy it during the end phase. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except dark monsters, which again doesn't really matter. Basically, all of your extra deck monsters are dark, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. Then we have 1 copy of Rocket Recharger. If a dark monster or monsters you control is special summoned from the extra deck is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one of those destroyed monsters and special summon 1 dark monster from your graveyard with a different original name from the targeted monster. You can only use this effect of Rocket Recharger once per turn, and while you control a dark monster special summoned from the extra deck, your opponent's monsters cannot target this card for attacks. Lastly, for our Rocket monsters, we have double copies of Tracer, whose quick effect is targeting 1 face-up card you control and destroying it. And if you do, special summoning a Rocket monster from your deck, except Tracer. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except dark monsters. You can only use this effect of Tracer once per turn. Again, that dark clock doesn't really matter to us because most of, if not all of our monsters are darks. Then we have the 1 copy of White Dragon and 1 copy of Black Dragon. Both cannot be normal summoned or set and must be special summoned from your hand by banishing a light or dark monster from your graveyard, depending on which card you are summoning. And you can only special summon one of them once per turn this way. If this card is sent from field to the graveyard, you can either add a White Dragon if Black Dragon was sent, or Black Dragon if White Dragon was sent from your deck to your hand. Then we have 1 copy of Chaos Dragon Legionnaire. Kind of hard not to play this card. This is pretty much a Chaos deck. Cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by banishing 3 light and or dark monsters from your graveyard. When special summoned this way, you can activate this effect and apply the following effect based on the attributes of the monsters used to special summon this card. Also, this card cannot attack for the rest of the turn. So if it's only light monsters, you can special summon 1 monster from your graveyard in defense position. If it's only dark, you can shuffle 1 random card from your opponent's hand into the deck. And if it's both light and dark, you can destroy up to 2 cards on the field. You can only use this effect of Chaos Dragon Legionnaire once per turn. And we have the 1 copy of Darkness Metal Dragon. You can special summon this card from your hand by banishing 1 face-up dragon monster you control. You can only special summon Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon once per turn this way, and during your main phase, you can special summon 1 dragon monster from your hand or graveyard except Darkness Metal Dragon. You can only use this effect of Darkness Metal once per turn. Then we have 1 copy of Dragoonity Phalanx. Once per turn, while this card is equipped to a monster, you can special summon this equipped card. This is actually really good with the Dragoonity Divine Lance and some of your extra deck monsters. I find it just having it as a level 2 kind of helps. Then we have 1 copy of Black Metal Dragon. You can target 1 Red Eyes monster you control, equip this monster from your hand or field to that target, and it gains 600 attack. If this card is sent from field to graveyard, you can add 1 Red Eyes card from your deck to your hand. This is just really good at being able to facilitate your Striker Dragon early on, and then it gives you access to your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. Other than that, that's all it's really in for. And then we have 1 copy of Rox Rose, 1 copy of Red Rose, and the Basil Rose Shoot. I'm probably going to get rid of this package because we don't have Chaotic Ruler in the game anymore. But for now I'm keeping it in because we do still play some Synchro monsters. So if Rox Rose is normal or special summoned, you can add a card that specifically lists Black Rose Dragon in its text from your extra deck to your hand except Rox Rose. And while this card is in your graveyard, if a face-up Rose Dragon monster or monsters or plant Synchro monsters you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can add this card to your hand. You can only use each effect of Rox Rose once per turn. Your Red Rose Dragon, if this card is sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can special summon 1 Rose Dragon monster from your hand or deck except Red Rose. Then, if it was sent for the synchro summon of a Black Rose Dragon or a Plant Synchro Monster, you can also add one Frozen Rose or one Blooming of the Darkest Rose from your deck to your hand, and you can only use this effect of Red Rose once per turn. And Bystial Rose Shoot allows us to special summon one Rose Dragon monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, and if this set card is destroyed, you can target one of your Black Rose Dragons or one monster that specifically lists that card in its text that is banished or in your graveyard and special summon it. You can only use each effect of Bystial Rose Shoot once per turn. So I might cut that engine, I might not, because we do play a few synchros, and one of them is Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. But moving on with our spells, we have one copy of Dragon Ravine. Once per turn during your main phase, you can discard one card to activate one of these effects. Add a level 4 or lower Dragunity monster from your deck to your hand, or send a Dragon-type monster from your deck to the graveyard. Both of those effects are actually pretty good. You can either add phalanx off this effect, or you can send a Dragon-type monster from your deck to the graveyard, and that's just really good with the deck. Then we have one copy of Dragunity Divine Lance, which can only be equipped to a Dragunity monster. It gains attack equal to its level times 100, but also it is unaffected by trap effects. During your main phase, you can equip one Dragon-type Dragunity Tuner monster from your deck to the monster equipped to this card. You can only use this effect of Divine Lance once per turn. And we have one copy of Allure of Darkness and one copy of 1-for-1. Allure is really good in this deck because you do play a lot of dark monsters, and you're basically guaranteed to always have one in your hand, so you don't have to banish your entire hand. You can just banish the one dark monster. Not banish your entire hand, but send it to the graveyard, and you're always you're basically just plussing off of this card. 1-for-1 is kind of the same thing, where you can send a monster from your hand to the graveyard, and special summon one level 1 monster from your hand or deck, which is great because this also helps you get out your Black Metal Dragon. Then we have triple copies of Chaos Space. This is a staple for Dragon-link. This lets you send a lighter dark monster from your hand to the graveyard, and add a lighter dark monster that cannot be normal summoned or set from your deck to your hand, with the level from 4 to 8, and with a different attribute than the monster that you sent. This is really great because you can add your Bystial cards off of it. You can also banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished light or dark monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set, and place that monster on the bottom of the deck, then draw one card. You can only use each effect of Chaos Space once per turn. Then we also have triple copies of Quick Launch and one copy of Boot Sector Launch. Quick Launch is great because you can special summon a rocket monster from your deck, but it cannot attack. Also, it is destroyed at the end of during the end phase. But that doesn't really matter because you're more than likely going to be linking it off or synchroing it. Then we have Boot Sector Launch, which gives all rocket monsters on the field a 300 attack and defense boost. You can activate one of these effects. Special summon up to 2 rocket monsters with different names from your hand in defense position. Or if your opponent controls more monsters than you, special summon rocket monsters with different names from your graveyard in defense position up to the difference. You can only use this effect of Boot Sector Launch once per turn. And then we have one copy of Called by the Grave, pretty much standard. Target one monster in your opponent's graveyard and banish it, and if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated, as well as the activated effects and effects on the field of monsters with the same original name. And then I do also plan on playing Branded Regained in this. I just, again, don't have access to it right now. I'm still waiting for it to come in the mail, but I'll have that up on screen as well. And lastly, to round off our deck, we have double copies of Branded Beast. Once per turn, during the main phase, if you control a Bystial monster, you can tribute one dragon monster, then target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. During the end phase, you can target one branded continuous spell or trap in your graveyard and place it face up on your field. You can only use this effect of Branded Beast once per turn. And that rounds off our main deck. Again, like I said, I'm probably going to tweak it a little bit, but we'll see. Moving on to the extra deck, we have one copy of Boral End Dragon, which requires 3+ effect monsters, and cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Also, neither player can target this card with monster effects. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, and quick effect, you can target one effect monster on the field and one rocket monster in your graveyard. Negate the effects of that monster on the field, and if you do, special summon that other monster from your graveyard. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. You can only use this effect of Boral End Dragon once per turn. Again, that's basically your boss monster, and it's just really good at being able to end games. And we have Triple Burst Dragon, which requires 2+ monsters except tokens. Once per turn, during the damage step, when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. During your main phase, except the turn that this card was special summoned, you can tribute this card, then target one Link 2 or lower monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Then you can special summon one level 4 or lower dragon monster from your hand. Then we have one copy of Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. I might bump this up to 2, but for now I'm playing it at 1. This requires 2 dragon monsters, and once per turn, if this card is in the extra monster zone, quick effect, you can tribute one monster from your hand or field, and return one face-up card on the field to the hand. If this card is tributed, special summon one dragon monster from your hand or deck, and make its attack and defense 0. You can only use this effect of Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres once per turn. Then we have one copy of Dragoonity Knight Romulus, 2 dragon and or winged beast monsters except tokens. If this card is link summoned, you can add one Dragoonity spell or trap or one Dragon Ravine from your deck to your hand. If a dragon monster or monsters is special summoned from the extra deck to a zone that this card points to, except during the damage step, you can special summon one dragon or winged beast monster from your hand in defense position. But for the rest of this turn, its effects, if any, are negated, and it cannot be used as linked material. You can only use each effect of Dragoonity Knight Romulus once per turn. Then we have one copy of Pisty, one level 4 or lower dragon monster. You cannot special summon monsters except dragon monsters, and during your main phase, you can target one of your dragon monsters that is banished or in your graveyard and special summon it to a zone that 2 or more linked monsters point to. And you can only use this effect of Pisty once per turn, and you can only special summon Guard Dragon Pisty once per turn. And we have the one copy of Striker Dragon. This requires one level 4 or lower dragon monster. If this card is link summoned, you can add one Boot Sector launch from your deck to your hand, and you can target one face-up monster you control and one rocket monster in your graveyard. Destroy that monster on your field, and if you do, add the other monster from your graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect of Striker Dragon once per turn. Then we have one copy of Access Code Talker. This is just really good for ending games. 2+ effect monsters. Your opponent cannot activate cards and effects in response to this card effect activation. If this card is link summoned, you can target one link monster that was used as link material for its link summon. This card gains attack equal to that monster's link rating times 1,000, and you can banish one link monster from your graveyard, or from your field or graveyard rather, and destroy one card your opponent controls. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot banish monsters with the same attribute to activate this effect of Access Code Talker. And we have one copy of IP Masquerena. This requires 2 non-link monsters. During your opponent's main phase, you can quick effect. Immediately after this effect resolves, link summon one link monster using materials you control, including this card. You can only use this effect of IQ Masquerena once per turn. A link monster that used this card as material cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Then we have one copy of the Dark Charmer Gloomy. This requires two monsters, including a dark monster. This card is always treated as a familiar possessed card. You can target one dark monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to a zone that this card points to, and if this link summon card is destroyed by battle or is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while it's in its owner's monster zone, you can add one dark monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of the Dark Charmer Gloomy once per turn. Lastly, for our links, we have the one copy of the Dangerous Dragon. This requires two Dark Dragon monsters, and once per turn during your opponent's end phase, if you can target one attack position monster your opponent controls that did not declare an attack this turn, destroy it. And if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. If a rocket monster or monsters is special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of the Dangerous Dragon once per turn. That's it for our links. Moving on to our little synchro package, we have one Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. Requires one tuner and one plus non-tuner monsters. If this card is special summoned or a level 5 or higher monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, target one special summoned monster your opponent controls, return that target to the hand, and then you can only use this effect of Black Rose Moonlight once per turn. Next up, we have one Borreload Savage Dragon. This requires one tuner and one non-tuner monster. If this card is synchro summoned, you can equip one link monster from your graveyard to this card, and if you do, place Boral counters on this card equal to that monster's link rating. This card gains attack equal to half the attack of the monster equipped by this effect. And when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can remove one Boral counter from this card, negate the activation. You can only use this effect of Borreload Savage Dragon once per turn. Then we have one copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. This requires one tuner, one or more non-tuner Dark Dragon and Synchro monsters. Quick effect, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one tuner in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position. You can only use each effect of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss once per turn. That's it for our synchros. Moving on to our last two extra deck monsters, we have one copy of Heretic Dragon King of the Tomb, which requires two level 6 dragon monsters. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card and special summon one dragon monster from your deck, and make its attack and defense 0. This card cannot attack during the turn you activate this effect. Then we have one copy of the Zombie Vampire, which requires 2+ level 8 monsters. If you use a monster with a level that is owned by your opponent for the exceeds summon of this card, treat it as level 8. Neither player can target this card with effects of special summon monsters, except those special summoned from the graveyard. You can detach one material from this card, and then each player sends the top 4 cards of the deck to the graveyard. Then, if any monsters were sent to either graveyard by this effect, you can special summon one of those monsters to your field. You can only use this effect of the Zombie Vampire once per turn. And that rounds off our extra deck. Like I said, I'm probably going to tweak this deck a little bit. Some of the other cards you could run are Psychic End Punisher for your extra deck, or run some hand traps like Valor, Nibiru, and the likes. I'm probably going to include Seifert in the deck, as well as this hand trap lineup of Valor, Nibiru, Imperm. Don't know if I'm going to include Punisher yet, but we'll see. We'll go from there. And like I said, I still need to get the branded Regained and the other branded monster, or not branded, Bystial monster. Um, but yeah, this is what I have so far. It's a pretty fun deck, and it's not too bad against the meta right now.
Alright guys, that's it for this Bystial Dragon-link deck profile. Like I said, I am probably going to make some changes to the deck just to make it a little bit more consistent and to kind of combat the new Ishizu cards and the Ishizu tier limit deck strategy. But we'll see going forward what I do want to do with this. If you guys liked, be sure to leave a like, comment on what you want to see next, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. As always, I will catch you in the next one. That's game.